Hi folks, in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a private zero-tier network on the public internet. So with the current structure of zero-tier, you're still using their infrastructure for the public keys and the public IP addresses for the nodes that you want to connect to, especially if your nodes are behind a firewall. So zero-tier acts as sort of like a DNS server, if you will. And we're going to set it up so that we don't have to use the zero-tier network at all. And some people, I think, are just confused by how this actually works. So even though you're going to set up your own self-hosted controller, it's still using the zero-tier backbone for you to find your other nodes out on the internet. But we're going to set this up so that we just have our own root servers here, and they're located in two different locations. And the clients are located in two different locations. And instead of using zero-tier at all, the zero-tier servers, we're just going to use our own root servers on the public internet. And I'm going to walk you through how to set up this. I am, first of all, using the tutorial for setting up private root servers here. So this is another screen. I'll be using this as a guide, but essentially I'm just following along with what they have documented here. Okay. And then I'll show you how to set it up so that you're only using your root servers. All right. So let's jump right into it, if we will. Let me get my screen out the way. There we go, for maximum real estate. So I'm just following the instructions on another monitor. All right. So the first thing we're going to have to do is install ZeroTier, and I have it installed on each one of my servers here. Now, the root servers, they are not going to join any network. That's a recommendation by the zero-tier developers so that you can only communicate between each host, because you want all available bandwidth and RAM just focused on the management of their systems. Now, these are micro Google Cloud instances that I have here, and the systems don't need a whole bunch of RAM or disk space because it's basically just managing the public keys and public IPs for my nodes. And it may have to relay if there's a string set up with one of the clients and it can't do the point-to-point communication that's necessary. So I'm just going to follow their recommendations for this video and host it on one of the clients here. Okay. All right. And for the sake of not having a bunch of different screens up. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is select one of the root servers to do our work initially on. And by default, I'm just going to log in as root here, make things easy on both of my servers. All right. So by default, your zero-tier directory is located on the varlib ZeroTier1 directory there. You're going to need the identity.public file in order to generate the configuration that's going to be needed to convert this into a moon. All right. So let's get started. So the first command I'm going to run is going to create the file that I need in order to start the process of creating a moon. So I'm just following the documentation on the ZeroTier website, and then I'm going to use the id tool command and then init moon and the path to my ZeroTier identity.public file. Now this file, they say to keep it secret because it has secrets in it, and it's going to be used to create the moon file that you're going to distribute to your nodes. So I'm going to just call this moon.json. And then inside of this file, I'm going to make this big for just a moment. My moon.json file looks like this here. And what I'm going to do next is run the exact same command for the ID tool, ZeroTier ID tool, on my second server, and I'm going to add it to this line here. All right. So let me minimize this, hop over to my root 2 server, and once again, the same command, ZeroTier ID tool, init moon, and the path to my identity.public file. add it to the screen here. And so I'm going to copy this part. That's part I need, these square brackets and then the identity here. So let's copy it to my buffer. And I'm going to expand my root 1 server now. So I'm back on my root 1 server. I'm going to go into edit mode here. I normally use VI. And right about here, I'm going to put a comma, which is going to allow me to separate the two. I'm going to paste this into my moons file. And so now I have my root 1 server identity and then my secondary root server identity. And now I need to fill in these two stable endpoints right here. And those are the IP addresses, the public IP addresses for my two moons files. And I have those in my cheat sheet. And so I'm going to copy my first root server here. And again, in the documentation on the ZeroTier website, it shows you how to format this. So you put in the IP address in double quotes and then /9993, which is the port number that's used by default for ZeroTier. All right. So right here, my quotes, I'm going to paste my IP address /9993. And I'm only using IPv4. I'm not using IPv6 IP addresses. And this is the IP address for my root 2 server, or my second moon. Close and double quote, paste that, /9993. All right. And that's really the only configuration I need for my two servers here. All right, so let me double check that. Be sure there's a comma separating these two, and be sure that you have this curly braces enclosing your two identities here. All right, so I'm going to save this. All right. And then the next step I need to do is I'm going to sign this and create the moon file. So to do that, I'm going to run the command once again, following the documentation on the ZeroTier website. And I'm going to sign this with ZeroTier genmoon moon.json. So that's the JSON file that I just edited in this command here. I just created this right here. I'm going to run that. All right. And then that's going to create a new file. And this is what I'm going to copy to each one of my root servers and also to any client that wants to connect. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to make dir var lib ZeroTier. Requires a directory called moons.d, which does not exist by default on your system. Then I'm going to copy this into the same directory like that. All right. Now, before I restart ZeroTier, I'm going to do something that's going to allow us to have our own private root server. Okay. The root server IP addresses for ZeroTier are published here on their website. And these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 IPv4 addresses, but you also see each site has an IPv6 address. Now on my systems, I went ahead and disabled IPv6 just to show that this is working without IPv6. And I put these two commands in right here and then ran sysctl-p. All right. So I'm going to put in a firewall rule that's going to block inbound and outbound to these IPv4 addresses. And that's done so that I don't communicate with the ZeroTier servers, because I already have ZeroTier installed currently. And what I'm going to do now is just show you. So ZeroTier, status, right? So I'm online. I'm going to run ZeroTier list networks. There. And list moon. List moon or list moons? I think it's I just lost my syntax here. Sorry about that. Let me run the help here. List peers. I'm sorry. List peers. List peers. There we go. So these are the 4 IP addresses that we just looked at for ZeroTier. So it's currently going to communicate to their servers. Now, once again, just a quick explanation. The ZeroTier servers, if you will, let's just work with this example, is like a DNS server. It stores the public keys for your clients and the IP address that's going to be used to communicate with your nodes. Because if your nodes are behind firewalls, they need to know how to get to each other. And what ZeroTier tries to do first is have a point-to-point connection so that it communicates. So each one of your public IPs for your nodes will connect directly to each other. All traffic is not relayed through the ZeroTier servers unless there's some configuration on your network that doesn't allow that point-to-point communication. So I just want to, just want to clarify that. The data is still encrypted, even if it is relayed, but it tries to communicate point to point. Really important to understand about ZeroTier. So they call their root source planets, and you're going to be creating moons. All right. So what I'm going to do is add an IP or an iptables rule for each ZTIP. I'm just going to call my variable, and I'm going to use these IP addresses right here. So let's copy that, paste it, and each one of these is going to be read in to this for loop. And while it's inside of the loop, it's going to be assigned the variable eachZTIP, just for the sake of making it easy to understand what we're doing here. All right, paste that. We're going to do iptables -a, output -d. Okay, so outbound, that's destination, is going to be these IP addresses, each ZTIP. All right, -j drop. So that's going to block any outbound connections trying to initiate to the ZeroTier servers. And we're just going to go ahead and add in an inbound rule as well. ZeroTier is just not going to start communicating with you. You're going to communicate with it to initiate communication. So I'm just going to add this in for sanity, consistency. Trying to type and talk at the same time, that's not working. -j drop. All right, and then done. So we have our for each loop, and we're going to read in each one of these IP addresses into this iptables for outbound destination, and then iptables input, the source. All right, and then let's run this. All right, I'm going to expand this for just a moment so we can look at our iptables rules. There we go. All right, so you see the drop for those IP addresses. Did I get all of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm missing one. Which one am I missing? 50.773. Oh, the 103. 50.7. 107. Okay, the 107 one I'm missing. Now, even though I didn't see that in my list, I'm just going to go ahead and add that anyway, because it's here. I didn't see it in my peers, but it's right here on their site. So I'm just going to add that as well, just to be sure that we're communicating on our private network. Okay, so I'm just going to type those in directly. A output -d, copy that IP address, at a drop. Okay, and then I'm going to change this to my inbound. So the source is going to be inbound. It's going to be on the input chain. All right. So now I should have each of those IPs. Okay. So now those are being blocked. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to restart my ZeroTier. And I give it a moment. All right. Now I'm going to run that command again I ran earlier, where you can see my peers. And currently you see I have no peers or moons because I blocked those those hosts. So what I want to do is add this rule to all of my systems. Okay. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and put a sudo in here because I'm going to be running this on my clients as well. And I'm doing it on my client just to demonstrate to you that it's working as I expect it to. All clients don't have to do this because you're going to be copying over the moon file. I'll talk about that shortly. So go ahead and copy. Oops, I got to add in the other IP 107.170.7.14. Right there, and let me add it. Yeah, I think that should be good. Yeah, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this on each one of my systems. Right, clients, and it's not required on your clients because you're going to be giving it the moon file so it'll know how to find you. But I'm just doing this for the sake of demonstration, though. All right, and iptables -l-n. Okay. Go ahead and start my ZeroTier on this one, and then my ZeroTier by peers. See, those are blocked. I'm going to go ahead and restart my ZeroTier here, and my ZeroTier by, oops, oh, that's right, sorry, sudo ZeroTier by list peers blocked. Copy this, and I'm going to paste it over here. All right, so let me restart. Right, and now those are blocked. Okay, so all the ZeroTier servers are currently blocked from accessing my systems and from me going outbound to those systems. So now what I need to do, here's, okay, now, did I run this? Did I run this? Let's see, table-l-n, drop, then here's, okay, let me see, why am I seeing those IP addresses? Let me think. I restart it. Go here. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Okay, so I figured out that problem pretty quickly. I had the wrong IP address for my secondary moon. This is the correct IP. I had copied and pasted one of my client IPs by mistake. So just be sure you have the proper IPs for your public IPs for your root servers here. All right. And I went through the same process where I ran the ZeroTier I in moon, and then my moon.json file. Exact same command. It created the I'm sorry, ID tool. There we go. And then it created my moons file that I can pass around to my clients. So that's what the problem was. And now when I do my list peers, you see these are my two root servers, and every client shows the same. So that's my secondary root server. Here's my clients listing the peers. You see they all have the same configuration now. So this is now on a private network. So my clients can see my moons can see my clients, and everything's hunky-dory at this point. Okay. All right. So what now? What do we do? Well, I'm going to use one of these two clients to try to connect to each other via my now private zero-tier network. So the zero-tier public servers are now out of the picture. So I'm now on my own private zero-tier network. Okay. So let me see if I can go ahead and create a network. And I have my handy dandy -ZT scripts that I wrote. And I'm going to start that ZT networks. All right. Let me just expand this. This is my client one. That's currently the host controller. It can be any host with zero-tier installed on it. Just like they recommend, don't make it your root service, make it some other server or system. All right, so I want to create a new network because again, this is my host, self-hosted network. This is my test network. I want to auto-generate IP address range. I'm all done. And yes, and yeah, that looks good. All right, I now have a network. Hit 5, so that's my test network, my IP addresses. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to exit this and I'm going to join my network. So zero-tier, oops, see, I got to sudo this, sudo zero-tier apply join, and it's going to be this network ID here. Oops, there we go. I'm going to paste that. All right, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to join my second client to this network. Like that. All right. Now, if all worked as expected, what I should see on my now self-hosted controller are my two clients that are ready to be authorized. And to do that, I click on option 3 for peer management. So here's 3. I only have one network, which is my test network. And I click 1. And so when I go to list my peers, what I should see are my two clients here under all authorized, list all unauthorized peers, because currently waiting to be authorized to my zero-tier network. And 2, you can see there are my two clients. I'm going to authorize that one, 2 again. I'm going to authorize my second client. And so this is all on my private zero-tier network because I have my own private root servers. Okay. And I'm just going to list peers again. See, list peers. See, I'm only communicating with my servers, not the zero-tier network. All right. And so now what I'm going to do is check my IP address. You can see there's my zero-tier assigned IP for my second client. Let me exit the program here. And then here's my IP address for my first client. Now, can they ping each other? Ping. I'll ping my second client here. And see, they can communicate. I now have my own private zero-tier network. All right. And just to verify this, I'm going to sudo apt install TCP dump. All right. So TCP dump -n. Let's do any. Well, it doesn't matter. Port 9993, which is a port that's used for communication with my zero-tier network. And you see this 10.138. That's my private IP for my host here. Okay. And again, see I'm pinging right now. See, there's no relay going on. These two clients are communicating point to point. Okay. They're communicating point to point with each other. All right. So that's how you set up your zero-tier private network. And just to recap, I followed the instructions as you see it here, and I'm going to post it in the description as well. I followed the instructions here for creating my private moons or root servers, if you will. And then I copied over the moon file to each one of between my two root servers, first of all, and then I copied the moons file to my two clients. And that's needed so that the zero-tier, my clients know how to communicate with my root servers. And as you see what happens when I do list peers, I only have those two, my own private root servers. The zero-tier network is not being utilized for my my communication channel. Okay. All right. So what is this IP right here? These are my clients. These right here are my clients. Let me get that. And again, sorry. Go paste this. It's 244. You see this IP address right here matches my client here. See? And then if I run this same command over here, this is my internal network. All right. So that's how you set up your own private zero-tier network on the public internet. Okay. Please let me know if you have any questions, and good luck setting up your own private zero-tier network.